There was, in the great and clamorous city of Veridia, a man by the name of Arthur Penwright. He was not a man of great import, nor of any particular villainy, but rather a creature of that vast and sorrowful species known as the spectator. His occupation, in the dusty and gaslit confines of the Cogwell and Grime counting house, was to tally figures in a ledger, a task he performed with the unthinking precision of a well-oiled cog in a machine far too immense for his comprehension. His lodgings, a set of chambers in a street perpetually veiled in a miasma of coal smoke and a fine, drizzling rain, were respectable enough. He was neither starved nor destitute, yet Mr. Penwright was haunted by a poverty of a more insidious kind, a profound and nameless hollowness in the very marrow of his being. His life was a ledger of days, meticulously kept, but one in which the final balance showed no profit to the soul. The city of Veridia, it must be said, was a masterful engine for the production of just such a hollowness. Its primary thoroughfare was not of cobblestone, but of information, a ceaseless, roaring torrent known as the pneumatic tattler. Through a labyrinth of brass tubes, it hissed and spat an endless stream of abbreviated news, fleeting fashions, calamitous warnings, and the ever-present advertisements of the gilded emporium of fleeting fancies. Mr. Penwright, like all of Veridia, was an addict of its whispers. He would stand for an hour, watching the pronouncements flicker past, feeling a tremor of excitement or a pang of envy. But it was a meal that never nourished. He was an spectator of the world's drama, yet a stranger to his own life. His central conflict was this: Mr. Penwright had all the components of a life laid out before him, but he possessed no knowledge of how they were to be assembled into a structure of meaning. One bleak November evening, seeing his own vacant, spectral reflection superimposed over a dazzling display in the emporium's window, a singular thought pierced the fog of his apathy. Is this all there is? This question, a spectre more terrifying than any phantom of Marley, drove him from the main avenues into a labyrinth of back alleys, where he discovered a small, soot-stained shop. Upon entering, Mr. Penwright found himself in a workshop, cluttered not with gears and springs, but with strange and beautiful contraptions. The proprietor, Mr. Vance, was a man whose eyes held the patient calm of one who has watched the turning of the spheres. "I believe, sir," Arthur stammered, "that my soul is out of true." Mr. Vance nodded slowly. A common affliction in Veridia. The mechanism has been neglected. It requires recalibration. The work is arduous, and you must forge the tools yourself. Thus began Mr. Penwright's struggle. His conflict was not with a villain of flesh and blood, but with the ingrained habits of a lifetime, with the lazy, fearful, and distracted tyrant that was his own untutored mind. First, he was presented with the compass of prudence. It finds its equilibrium not in the noise of the tattler, Vance said, but in the silence of sound judgment. Arthur's struggle was immense. The tattler's roar was a siren's song, and the compass's hum was barely a whisper. Next, he was led to the crucible of resolve, a great forge glowing with menacing heat. "This is the forge of courage," the old man declared. "You must learn to withstand the heat, to burn away the dross of cowardice." Arthur was tasked with a simple act of honesty at his counting house, but the heat of social discomfort was too great. He retreated, his spirit as useless as cold iron. Then came the mallet of temperance. "The appetites are a ravenous beast," said Vance. "You gorge yourself on the tattler, on idle gossip, on needless anxieties. You must chisel away the excess to reveal the form within." Each evening, Arthur fought the craving for the fleeting numbness it provided. Finally, Mr. Vance unrolled the schema of civic duty. "You have viewed your life as a solitary ledger," he explained, "but you are a single tile in the great mosaic of this city." Arthur was tasked with mending a broken pump in his courtyard, a thankless job he resented, failing to see that it was the project. This was his fiercest struggle, to expand his sense of self beyond his own skin. The resolution of Mr. Penwright's plight came not with a sudden inheritance or a grand public triumph, but in the course of an ordinary Tuesday. A junior clerk, a lad as timid as Arthur once was being cruelly and unjustly berated by Mr. Cogwell for an error that was not his own. The old Arthur Penwright, the spectator, would have lowered his head, dipped his pen in the inkwell, and disappeared into his ledger, his heart hammering with a mixture of fear and pity. But today was different. He felt the quiet, steady hum of the compass of prudence, telling him that silence was an act of complicity. He felt the phantom heat of the crucible of resolve on his face, and this time he did not flinch from it. He held the mallet of temperance in his mind's hand, checking the urge to shout in anger, and he saw the schema of civic duty, understanding that to abandon the boy was to loosen a critical tile in the mosaic of their small office community. Mr. Penwright stood up. "Begging your pardon, Mr. Cogwell," he said, his voice trembling but clear. "I believe there has been a mistake in the tally. The error is in fact my own. I overlooked it yesterday." A stunned silence fell upon the counting house. Arthur accepted the reprimand that followed. He did not lose his job, but he lost his fear. In that single act of transference, of taking another's burden upon himself, he had finally assembled the disparate parts of his life into a meaningful whole. He returned to his chambers that evening, not with the hollow fatigue of the spectator, but with the profound and deeply satisfying weariness of a craftsman who has done a good day's work. The tattler hissed from its brass tube on the wall, but for the first time he did not hear it. He was listening instead to the quiet, steady hum of a well-calibrated soul. The ledger of his day was closed, and though it showed no great fortune in pounds or shillings, Mr. Arthur Penwright knew with a certainty that warmed him to his very bones that for the first time in his life he had turned a profit.
Looks like it's time to like and subscribe.